folks. Welcome to another rendition of the Kansas City Artists Coalition's Artist Talk series. I am Programs Director and your host for today, Jen Harris, and I am really excited to introduce you to our July exhibiting artist, Christopher Leitch. Christopher is living and working near Kansas City. His works have been widely exhibited at the CICA Museum in South Korea, the Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art, the University of Wyoming Museum of Art, the Kansas City Jewish Museum, Jan WeinerGallery, and many more. His 100-piece work, Dreaming About Mom, was included in True Stories at the Nerman Museum with essay by Michaël Amy. His large biological painting, Before, toured in Men of Cloth, curated by poet Stephen Beal. His work has been reviewed or featured in Art in America, New Art Examiner, FashionTheory, American Craft, the International Textile Design Directory, Drawing from Life by Jennifer New, and Ley Lines by H.L. Hicks. He has written art criticism for ArtPapers Atlanta, New Art Examiner, and Ceramics, Art and Perception. Leitch has served as Assistant Dean for Academic Affairs at Kansas City Art Institute and the Director of the Kansas City Museum at Corinthian Hall. He has taught and lectured frequently, and he has presented to the American Alliance of Museums and the CanadianMuseums Association. He earned an MA from Goddard College in Vermont and his BFA from the Kansas City Art Institute. And in July, Christopher is specifically going to be exhibiting his Cooking from Memory series. It's an exhibition, an exhibit project at the Kansas City Artists Coalition in the SNAP space. And he is inviting members and gallery visitors to participate by sharing culturally specific memories about cooking and food in a brief story or drawing that he'll include at the installation. So a pamphlet where he gives you the opportunity to offer up your information and write about the food that has an impact on your memory and or draw an image of that food. The installation asks questions like, where are we from? What do we eat? It explores the subtle and profound powers of engagement with food to translate and transmit personal and public history, culture, and identity, especially for people in new places. I had an incredible time talking to Christopher throughout this interview, and I hope that you will enjoy it just as much as I did. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting the Kansas City Artists Coalition. If you're not a member, please go to kansascityartistcoalition.org to sign up to become one and enjoy this conversation with artist and maker Christopher Leitch. It's the greatest tragedy of my life that we did not just have that preemptive conversation recorded, but I'm so grateful that that is the emotional introduction that you and I can share and nobody else can get in on. I am talking with Christopher Leitch today, not just about, we haven't even gotten to your art yet, but we are talking about the politics of beer and the bureaucracy of institution and the experiences that we're having as creatives in this culture, or the facade of experiences we're having in this culture. And I'm just
the experience
wow.
of being of having a facade, of having to present, and I think it's true. In Buddhism, we have a saying that you can participate in society without being tainted by it. And I think a lot of queer people have that experience every day. And a lot of women have that experience every day. And people of color have that experience every day, trying to navigate a preconceived role in majority culture versus the kind of life that you actually want to have. And I think artists are very familiar with that too, because we dwell so much in the presence of our own minds and our thoughts, whether our work is community-based or individual studio-based. And we know that we have to sometimes pull on our boots and walk out into the world and navigate it, because we don't live alone. We do live in a society, but it is a challenge when, as a young artist, you understand, oh, not everybody is going to get this. Not everybody's been following my train of thought. I might have to explain myself once in a while.
It's such a difficult thing to come to terms with too, especially when, I mean, you got your BFA at the did you get it at the Kansas City Art
At Kansas City Art
Institute?
Institute in 1984. Yeah,
Okay, excellent.
that
So
that
you
was
you
a
understand
long
the
time ago.
reality of being surrounded by other creatives and then jumping out into the world where they were like, "That's nice." I mean, was that your experience? That they were like, "That's
Well,
nice that you do this," or how did you enter into the world of creativity?
well, I've had a wonderful experience in my life of moving in and out of many worlds. My parents were restless, and I attended 6 different grade schools, and then landed at high school where I stayed for 4 years. So there was this. I had to develop some social coping skills early on, but I came from this very loving family, and we're all very different from one another, 5 kids, but my parents just loved us and encouraged us each to go in our own direction. And uh, I, I, I felt a real connection to my family and my history and my heritage, just coming from the kind of family I come from, and navigating all those different places and geographies seemed easy to me because I had these loving parents and a boisterous family life. And went to a couple of schools. I attended a junior college for a year and then a state university for 3 years. That was the biggest place I had ever been at that point in my life, and it was just shocking to me, and I loved it. Um, but I still was in an art school of 500 on a campus of 35,000 people who might not have cared about it, and met some extraordinary people I'm still friends with to this day, and did some great study in a variety of other departments. I was there for 3 years and didn't get near my graduation credits because I kept exploring the history of philosophy, or I wanted to take Hebrew for a semester, so I did that. And um, it was there beautifully that I was introduced to, I think, the first half of the 20th century's modernism with a small m of universality and global thinking, and Joseph Campbell and the like, and really felt the small c Catholicism of this world of ideas on a big university campus, and that jibed nicely with my home life's sense of unity and camaraderie, but I still felt I was speaking a foreign language on that campus in Norman, Oklahoma. So, almost on a lark, I sent in my application to Kansas City Art Institute and was accepted. And just I picked up and moved one semester and moved up here and got a job as a busboy in some restaurant on the plaza, and started my life at Kansas City Art Institute. When I walked in the door for my interview and I met Jane Lackey, who was chair of the fiber department then, and fiber was in the crafts department at Kansas City Art Institute at the time, and Ken Ferguson and Victor Babu and George Timmock were still there, and Shigeko Spear was in the fiber department. She was an amazing faculty person. I felt as if I'd come home from a foreign trip and was flying through customs and everybody spoke my language. I was really intimidated by Jane, but um, she talked to me like I was a real person and not a freak. And we were able to look at my portfolio and discuss it in serious terms of what I was doing. And I felt like I belonged in a way that I hadn't felt in a long time, except in my family life. So uh, being able to be introduced to that world and study there for 2 years and meet amazing people and um, be asked questions I hadn't been asked before it was good. It was really, really good. Our family is a creative marriage of country and city. Daddy was a farm boy and mom was a city girl, uh, but a poorer city girl. So, I mean, she knew how to sew and do everything. And daddy, if you didn't make it, you didn't have it. So, we were just a family that's real crafty and really good with our hands and doing things. And I thought everyone was that way, and I thought everyone knew their family history back to the 15th century. And I that sense of connection has followed me. Um, and it was rude to then uh, take these sojourns out into the world. At my busboy job, they didn't care about art. Um, at any of the other positions I ever have had in the outside world, it's foreign and distant to them. So I tried then to find as many opportunities to be where I was understood and could understand. And that's been with creative people in theater and studio arts and the museum and gallery world.
What an incredible story this is. Listen, I think there's a particular resilience that poverty creates. Speaking from my own experience, I like that you described your parents as restless. I describe mine as nomadic. I
Hmm.
also attended a multitude of schools in
Right.
many a location. I actually not too far from Norman, Oklahoma, is Moore, Oklahoma, which is
Yes,
where
that's
I
right.
was
Yeah.
in elementary school.
Right.
Um, there's there is there is a social awareness you must create when you are always the new student, and I think there is a resilience built into that where you have to open up and be available for those that might receive you and where you may find place in that newness with consistency. And it sounds to me like you have led a life with that sort of facing forward.
Well, I don't think you have a choice when your parents are dragging you across the country,
Certainly.
and you go to two different schools in the third grade, and are
We have
and
an awful lot in common, sir.
at the at the first school I attended in third grade, we were going to learn cursive writing after the Christmas break, and at the school I joined later, they had learned it before, so I had to teach myself cursive writing by looking at it on the little strips, that they
Mhm.
would put over the chalkboard. Um, I I think I developed that resilience before I really knew what it was. And resilience
Certainly.
takes a lot of different forms. Some is in I don't want to call it arrogance, but a kind of brashness and uh, pushiness. And in other ways, it's more like how the mammals survived the meteorite strike and the dinosaurs didn't, except in the form of birds. You learn to scurry and hide and rest in corners and watch. And as a queer kid, um, you're subconsciously developing that ability to hide and protect yourself anyway. And I think the combination of those things made me a pretty shy child. I don't want to say I was fearful, but I wasn't very sociable because you don't know who's going to reject you, you don't know where you're going to land next, et cetera, et cetera. So I became really observant then and observant of my own habits and my own skills and ability to thrive in those social situations. At home, I was this loud, obnoxious, oh my God, child, one of five. But out in public, I think my sister and my brother and I, who were the middle cohort, just became really quiet, sort of, the lemurs always looking out to the horizon to see what was going to happen. And I think that's another thing that helped me thrive in an individual making kind of setting, because there I knew how to thread needles and use a sewing machine. I knew how to use glue and saws and tools and wood and screwdrivers and all that stuff, and I felt confident navigating those conversations in
Mhm.
the studio. If I didn't uh, in public, I had few friends, but close friends in grade
Mhm.
school. And then when we landed in seventh and eighth grade, I was in this small farm town in Oklahoma. In a small school, and we were the only Catholics in a town full of Baptists. So that was tons
Oklahoma
of
has it breeds Baptists.
it was tons of fun, and there were kids who weren't allowed to talk to me or play with me and stuff like that. Um, but by that time, I think I had a better grip on uh, a social identity, uh, which
Mhm.
was part performative and part observant of
Mhm.
human nature. And then all that changed when